Hi friends, Kerry Phipps here with the Connect with Confidence podcast. I am so thrilled to be sharing this conversation with Warwick Merry. Now, I have been on Warwick's podcast, the Get More Success Show, 2 times in the past, and we've had many other great conversations, but I know that this podcast will also support you to grow in confidence. Warwick shares some amazing stories, some funny stories, and very insightful tips to help you grow in confidence and have a better conversation with yourself and others. Over to Warwick.
You can say to someone, I've got a bit of imposter syndrome, and people go, oh, you'll be good at this, you'll be fine. And then, but the doubt stays. They're two separate things. You can admit that you have something, but that doesn't make it go away. Therefore, it becomes, okay, how do I have to reinforce to myself that it's like, this is ridiculous?
I was looking, Warwick, at your bio on Instagram because, that's always fun. So you're a master MC, success speaker, exhibiting expert, singer, motorbike rider, poodle owner, comedian, geek, techie, improv doer, author, and so much more. Welcome to the Connect with Confidence podcast.
Yay, I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm very impressed by my own bio on Instagram.
Well, I did look at your bio on LinkedIn also. And, I've known you for 5 years now, since meeting you in Singapore when you're only 10 hours drive from here, sunny Melbourne. I've known some of your story, but I also discovered on Instagram about the year that you spent in the US as a full-time exhibiting expert. And I thought, how many amazing conversations and insightful and interesting conversations, possibly some boring ones too. But that would have been a great learning experience. When was that?
It was quite amazing. It was, because, I get people going, oh, trade shows, my feet hurts, they're 2 days long. And I'm like, yeah, try 12 months, then you get to talk to me. So that was back in 1992.
Wow.
So quite a while ago. That's when I was young and had more hair. That was at the Information Technology Pavilion in downtown Dallas, Texas. So,
that's fantastic. You must have been very, very young at the time, Warwick.
Oh, yeah. No, I was, how old was I? 92. I was born in 68. So what does that make me? 24, 25, something like that?
Okay. So I'd love to hear even about earlier days, because you come across as like so confident and you try new things. You do so many interesting things, and you're really leading the way at the moment with helping people to connect people with technology and really build community in these times where people are so isolated. So thank you for that. But take us back, tell us about young Warwick's confidence building journey.
It's a really interesting thing, and it's the whole don't be fooled by the cover. Don't be fooled by what you see. I had no confidence, and to this day I have my fair share of imposter syndrome. Don't doubt that at all.
Yeah.
But I grew up in a rural community down, 3 hours drive away from Melbourne, down in South Gippsland. It was a small little country town, 2,000 people, grew up on a farm. And I did not fit in. I was not, you think of Australian country town, you think sport, you think drinking. And I did neither of those two things. I was not interested.
Yeah.
And I was good at school and I loved the academic stuff. So that's what I did. I had some friends, but not a huge number, but I didn't do anything different. And this is, back then I was sort of too scared to really do anything. So I don't know, but I'd done a lot of professional and personal growth over that time. And I'm more likely to embrace stuff. I'm more likely now to just give stuff a crack, fail faster. I've always been quite happy to make a fool of myself. I remember my parents' effort to try and make me skinny. They'd make me play lots of sport. And when you have to play sport, you don't do it because you enjoy it. When you have to play, I hated it.
Yeah.
I just hated it. I remember being told off. I'd play tennis and I was crap. I was so bad. And being told off because I wasn't taking it seriously enough. And I'd always want to wear bright clothing and bright, shorts and be just, hey, here we go. I'm just like, I want to make it fun and it's boring. Like I'm just got to stand here and wait and then hit. And I'm like, I'm about talking. I'm about sound. I'm about music. I'm about, I'm not about sport and standing here. Like the idea of cricket where you play a game for 5 days and don't have a winner. That is just... So yeah, it's really interesting how, looking back, I was the fat funny guy with this mask of confidence, And it was just, I don't know what it was for or why I did it, but it's what it was. And only through going through a whole lot of personal growth can I allow my true self now to come out and be okay with that and be authentic and be a whole lot of fun. And at times go, you know what? The rest of the world needs to just piss off, for want of a technical term. I'm just going to stay home and read my book.
Yeah, yeah. I was wondering just before you started sharing that, if you were the class clown, when you said you were quite academic, I was like, oh, okay, great. I mean, I get that you are because you're so clever and you're so, on top of things, but I just imagine little Warwick as the class clown. But you paid attention in school too.
Part of that also is I've never been little Warwick. I'm physically a large person and have always been a large person. I was always the biggest guy in the school photos and whatever else. And so then physically I stood out as well. But yeah, look, I was good at my schoolwork, so I'd finish it very quickly and then I'd fart around because I'd want to have fun. I'm bored. To this day, I still remember my high school maths formulas and I love maths. And I keep offering all my friends' kids, I'm happy to help with the maths homework, but they never ask. So I'd get the week's maths work done in the first period. So they'd send me to the games room every other maths period to just fill in time. And so my parents were like, this is not okay. I actually had to change schools. So year 9, I went to the private school, which was an hour's drive away every day, backwards and forwards, because my parents were like, you need to do something with this gift that you have.
Wow. That's cool.
Naturally, I didn't. I just ended up with being on stage, waffling on and saying lots of noise,
And singing and acting and doing all kinds of interesting and impactful things, which I love. You mentioned imposter syndrome and you also mentioned being authentic, which I think diffuses the power of imposter syndrome, doesn't it? What do you think?
I don't think so, because you can say to someone, I've got a bit of imposter syndrome, and people go, oh, you'll be good at this, you'll be fine. And then, but the doubt stays. So they're two separate things. Like, you can admit that you have something, but that doesn't make it go away. So therefore it becomes, okay, how do I have to reinforce to myself that it's like, this is ridiculous? And so for me, some of the stuff that I do is I'll go back and look at other times I've had imposter syndrome and how I've proven myself wrong. I have a thing called a happy file where people send me emails of going, oh, I really wanted to say thank you for da-da-da-da-da, or hey, here's or testimonials, that kind of stuff. So if I'm feeling it, I'll go to my happy file because I can't trust myself. I can't trust my perspective, so I have to go to people who I do trust. And these are people who have paid me large sums of money. And if they're telling me that they got value for money, and if they're telling me that I'm really good at what I do, then I have to believe that. That's some of the ways that I deal with my imposter syndrome, is to look at what do the people who I respect say, and that really helps me go, okay, it's an illusion. It's not real, but I get it's in my head, and that's okay. It'll help me prepare better.
Yeah, that's powerful, because we do learn from the comments from others, don't we? When people endorse us, when they say what they valued, I often talk about giving specific feedback, not just saying thanks, that was great, but what was great about it, because we're continually learning and rewriting that conversation that we have in our own head. Yeah, absolutely.
We suffer from what I call the 9 pairs of shoes. And that is, and it's misnamed, but it makes sense to me.
Because it could be 20 or 30 pairs of shoes?
Let's say you've got a new pair of shoes and you go out and you see 10 of your friends. 9 of them say, wow, I really love your shoes. And the 10th person says nothing. They don't say they don't like them. They say nothing. All I will obsess about is that 10th person not saying anything. Why don't they say something? Why don't they tell me how the shoes are? Why don't they tell me about that? And it's just like, it's just a head mess that does not serve. So for me, I'm trying to focus on what's the great stuff people have said? What are the people who care? What's their focus? And you're right, specific feedback just is so much better than, oh, great, you're so good at what you do, that's awesome. It's like, well, yeah, thanks. But, what was it? What spoke to you? What touched you? What element got you? So I know to keep doing it.
Yeah. And, in Australian culture, sometimes people might say, oh, you're fishing for compliments, but you're actually just wanting to know specifically because you're learning from the compliment.
The difference between fishing for compliments or fishing for stuff, and you see this on social media all the time, that people go, oh my God, it's happened again. I'm so not good at this. And that people go, oh, we love you, you're amazing, But it's more, if someone comes up to you and says, oh, wow, you did a great job, say, oh, thank you very much. Look, just so I know, what specifically spoke to you? And it's just, and you're saying, look, just for my market research, just so I know. So it's not, I'm not going, what did you think of that? I'm saying when someone says something nice, I'm specifically going for it. And in terms of feedback, I'm very particular who I listen to. And because I've spoken on stage so many times, and I'll get some relative newcomers to the speaking industry or someone who's done a training course, and they'll come and go, I've got some feedback for you. And I'll be thinking to myself, I've been doing this, well, it's over 20 years now. I'm not sure your feedback is really what I'm after. And then they'll say, oh, you said 23 times, and then you swore or you did, and I'm like, yeah, well, that's what the client was after, or that's my style, or that's my, and I will just say, oh, thanks very much, I appreciate it, and then do nothing with it. But there'll be key people in the audience. I will say, look, I've got a new story, I've got a new piece, or can you give me specific feedback on this bit? Not the whole lot, just the bit. And I think that's the same with anything. If you're wanting some feedback, ask them beforehand so they can pay attention, but be specific on what you want to know about. What is it that you're working on?
Yeah, that's great tips, Warwick. Thank you. And I think all of us have a happy file somewhere if we have the opportunity to build it. So whether it's taking screen captures of kind comments, encouraging comments from people, or back in the day, it might have been a little postcard or something like that. I think bring back the letters in the post, hey, or even the smiley.
It can be a physical file. You can print stuff out and do whatever. I know friends of mine have had scrapbooks where they'll put stuff in. For me, mine's digital. I just have an email folder and another folder on my hard drive, and I just pop stuff in there as I need. And yeah, just have a look through it.
That's beautiful. And something in there that you said reminded me to ask you something that I often ask myself and occasionally put it out on social media for people to engage with. And that is, I don't know where I first heard this, but when is the last time you did something for the first time?
Yeah, great question. And that, it's funny, I often will do stuff for the first time and it not really, on the one hand, worry about it, on the other hand, not really worry about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So recently I've taken on a role as event producer, doing things like, and today we're talking over Zoom, but be it Zoom, WebEx, GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of my clients, they want to do their event online, but they don't know how to do it. They're like, how do I make this work? And because I'm a nerd and I have an IT degree and I've been a host at events, I've hosted many events, and I know what it takes to make an event work, I've naturally fallen into that role. And so it was basically earlier this year that I'm taken on the technical role of event host. And so that was really interesting, because the very first one, we had a major technical issue.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't what I had planned, but it was great because I found out what the problem was straight away, and I knew straight away I couldn't fix it because it was to do with a setting, and then once you've started, you can't this, that, and the other. But I had confidence to know there's got to be a workaround. So as the meeting's going and I'm sending messages to my customer, basically saying, there's an issue, I've got a workaround, the person's in the room, it's all good, but I'm just letting you know I'm working on it. And I spent a couple of hours in the background. It was a day-long event. And I'm reaching out to my expert gurus in the US, and I'm reaching out to my expert gurus in Europe, and I'm just saying, look, really urgently, this is the issue. What can I do? Da, 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 da. And we're able to find a workaround that worked more sustainably than what had happened. And what it meant was, for next events, I changed a whole lot of things so that couldn't happen again. And it's part of the remaining calm going, there's an issue. We'll deal with it and we'll move on. So that's the last time that jumps to mind I've done something for the first time.
Yeah.
The last thing I did for the first time that had me almost pass out with fear and nerves was a couple of years ago. I did a one-man show in the Fringe Festival where I was Gough Whitlam, my fellow Australians. And it was all about the actual dismissal, what led up to it, what happened after it. And it was based on some of his writing and some of other stuff. And I'm on stage a lot. I'm love an audience. The bigger the better. It's all great. And this particular theatre had a maximum capacity of 35 people, so it's not really big. But I don't have a script. I'll have key points, but I don't have a script. And so this was scripted, fully scripted. And we'd done some great work to rewrite the script to get it really schmick. That first night, I'm standing backstage, which is about the size of a bedroom closet, and my legs were weak, and I'm just going, oh my God, we've got to start soon or I'm going to fall. And the first performance really wasn't the best, but by the time we got to the 10th performance, it was really good, and it was a whole lot of fun, and I relaxed, and it's that whole, once I can let go of the whole, I've got to get this right, because it turned out I didn't have to get it right because I made mistakes, but it's only one person, so I could just jump around the script a bit, and the producer was just like, yeah, you went all over the place that time, but the customer, the end client doesn't know, the person in the audience, so, and it was a really great thing to do and so rewarding, and I had so many important people in my life come along and see it. And, I looked nothing like him because we couldn't get a wig to look like him, whatever. But it was a good, it was good. But it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Wow. Well done. And so what was the reward then in terms of, building confidence or doing things beyond that? Was that like a pivotal moment?
I think it was just, to me, it was the realization that it's okay to be scared out of your gourd. Like, it really is. And in many ways it was pleasurable because it was a stretch. Like, it was a big stretch. I'd never done this. Like, I've been in acting crews before, and I've done improv, and I've done all that sort of stuff. But this was different. There's no one else on stage. I'm just going to stand here for a bit and try and get my lines back. Like this, you're on your own. And so it was just like, and it's okay. And I can do it. And then as my confidence built over the run, I was throwing in extra lines. I was throwing in jokes. I was doing, which was all in character because Gough Whitlam was a funny guy. Like he's got some of my favorite one-liners that are so rude that they were said in Parliament House, and but they were just clever and quick and witty, and I have a lot of respect for who he was and what he achieved, and so it was just a delight to be able to represent that and play with it. And I think the joy of playing with it in a scary situation was fantastic.
Yeah, it can be quite rewarding to get through that scary situation, but often we avoid it. We just don't step into things because it's scary. And I love that feeling of standing on the edge and oh my gosh, what's possible here? But I think we do build that confidence to try new things. Even if we're not confident in the thing that we're doing, we're confident in knowing that we're going to get through this, that it's worth having a go, isn't it? If we really thought we were going to die, we just wouldn't do anything.
And it's that whole looking at your comfort zone and what does it take to stretch it, and how far are you willing to go? And some people are risk averse, and I'm quite willing to take certain risks, and in other areas not so much. It's weird, but for me, it's like, as you were saying, it's great to stand on the edge, and it's wonderful to step off. I've done abseiling, I've done some rappelling, I haven't done parachuting, but I've done a few weird and wonderful things, and those first times, oh my goodness, it's just like time for a new pair of underpants. But subsequent times, the joy, the buzz, it's over so soon, now I've got to climb right up that bloody rock wall again to have another go, and that once you've done it once, you're like, oh, I can do this again. Like this, what was I so worried about? What did I build myself up for? Versus going, it's going to be scary, whatever, let me just do it, move through it, move on. It's that whole, like getting a swimming pool, it's not so bad once you're in. And it's the same kind of stuff with so much in life. Like, that's such a great metaphor for life, and it's not so bad once you're in.
Yeah, exactly.
You get out.
So, Warwick, is there something that you're looking forward to scaring yourself with once we're out and about a little more? Any new adventures on the horizon?
I hadn't really thought about scaring myself with that kind of stuff. I am taking on. It's interesting. I've taking on bigger production clients, that's a bit weird and wonderful, but it is what it is. And so I'm looking forward to that. And because I am a bit risk averse, I'm making sure that I've mitigated so many of my risks, and I'm probably spending money I don't need to be sure that issues won't happen. As an example, some of these events are happening here in the USA, and so therefore I'm like, I need the internet connection to be good. And in my house is pretty good, but I'm hiring, there's an office I know of that has this massive internet pipe, like it's fiber up and down. So I'm renting a room. It's like 2:00 in the morning. I don't care. I'm going to have all these different computers all networked in. So I've got a backup with a backup of a backup kind of thing.
Yep.
And my phone's ready and yada yada yada, because it's just really important to be able to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's good. It's a good experience in pushing the boundaries. But having also said that, I think just living through the age we're living through is pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
One of the things I really miss at the moment is I haven't been able to sing. I sing in two groups, a choir and a quartet, and we haven't sung for months. And some of the research coming back is singing is really risky because of the high rate of singing, putting a lot of moisture into the air, and because you take big deep breaths, so you bring it back in again, and because the choirs are typically very well connected, so there's hugging and kissing and drinks afterwards and da 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 and cups of tea and whatever else, and so there's some new research starting just to try and work out how bad is it. So yeah, that's I think singing in a choir again might be the biggest risk I'll do in the nearest future.
Wow. Is there anything you'd like to sing for us now while you're here?
Not particularly.
Just have
Because
to ask.
I sing in a choir, so I'm one of four parts, and so therefore, I can sing you a bass line, dum da dum dum dum. It's like, oh, whoa, that's very. But you put the other three layers, and then it sounds amazing. And sometimes the parts on their own sound rubbish because they sound like they're clashing. But then you'll get this, an augmented fifth or whatever I'm not that musical, but that the term is, and it sounds amazing. And it's the same to be said for all of us in what we're doing every day. Sometimes what we do is a bit mundane.
Yeah.
But when you pair it up with what others in our lives are doing around us, it becomes extraordinary. And I think that's a really cool thing to understand, that sometimes what you're doing is pretty lackluster, but it's what it contributes that becomes amazing.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that was just coming to mind also for me as you shared that. And I've found myself saying a lot over the past couple of years, you make a bigger difference than you know. And it's because we do get bored with our little contribution and we think maybe that doesn't really make much of a difference, but your little sounds in the background can really add so much.
And today, like technology, man, the world is so small. I'll put some different posts on social media and I'll get people just commenting, and I don't know who they are, but they've been like, "Oh, I've been watching your stuff for ages, and I love what you've done with da 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 da." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, great, awesome!"
Yeah.
You can have a way bigger impact, and they might not remember your name, but they might remember, "Oh, there was this woman who came all the way from Australia, and she was talking about talking to people, and since then I've spoken to people, and I feel much better about talking to people, and." It's the sowing the seeds, and sometimes it is that standing on the shoulders of giants. How like they might have spoke to one person, read a book, seen a funny film, da 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 da, da, and then heard you speak, and then someone else read a book of yours and told them about it, and then they took some action. And so it's amazing the contribution is that you can make.
That's beautiful. I love the analogy of a choir being like life, like community. That's so beautiful, Warwick. I just love a conversation with you. As you know, I'm often saying, "Hey, Warwick, have you got a few minutes?" And there's always laughing involved, but I've restrained myself today to not be just laughing over your stories. But I just want to ask before we wrap up, are there any other tips that you'd like to share for building confidence, for managing those conversations in your head or with other people?
Yeah, look, I think part of it is it's the decision. The decision to do something is the easiest bit. But once you've decided, then you've got to take action to back that up.
Yes.
Often what you might need is what I call it's a lock nut. For those of you who use nuts and bolts, often you'll have a bolt, you put a nut on, and then you put another nut on the bolt to lock the first nut in place. So often if I've made the decision to do something, I will tell other people, or I'll make an announcement, or I'll put an event out there, or I'll start doing stuff, or I'll start letting people know, because then I can't back down. And it becomes that lock nut of like, you got to do it now. You've told people that you got to do it. And I can always not do it, but I've told someone. It's like if you want to go to the gym, it's always easier to go, "Oh, the weather's bad, my bone in my leg, whatever." But by saying to someone else, "I'll meet you at the gym at 6," you're like, "I've got to go because they're going to be there and I can't," So it's the lock nut that really helps things happen. And in the same way, if you want to build that confidence, it's getting that help from someone saying, "I just need you to listen," I don't want you to. I don't need you to give me any feedback. I don't need you. I just need you to listen. I'm just saying something, or I just need you to ask me in 2 weeks' time. How did you go with? And not in a did you do that, but just how did you go with? And so I haven't done it yet. I'll talk to you in 2 weeks and find out how you're going. That level of accountability really encourages action, and action is the magic word, not words are the magic action. It is, if you want to get stuff done, if you want to build that confidence, you've just got to do one little bit and just build the momentum and keep going. So it's that little action that builds the momentum.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Warwick. I really appreciate your insights and your stories, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. So if people are wanting to find you and follow you, of course, we'll put all of your links in the show notes, but is there anything else that you'd like to add?
If you just head to warwickmerry.com, that's where all my bits and bobs and stuff is. If you're looking at doing more online kind of presenting, online meetings, that kind of stuff, I've got some resources that your listeners are welcome to grab. That's warwickmerry.com/presenting online. So warwickmerry.com is the best place to go.
That's right. And they'll find so much great resource. And you have been a great resource to me and the speaking community around the world, especially recently, but even over the last 5 years since I've met you. So thank you again, Warwick.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show. See, if only I was a professional communicator, I could say that. Thank you so much for having me on the show.